What is up, guys? This is Tom with me, Danza, aka Crobat for the win.
Hey guys, Danza here, and just want to apologize for my weaker voice in advance. I've been fighting strep throat this week. It's been rough, but I'm still here, bringing week 5 power rank.
So, we're here, bringing Week 5 Power Rankings. Just to lead off, this week, I made a special point to look at first 5 weeks and now leading up into these 5 weeks. From the pre-draft power rankings and the post-draft power rankings, the way I was looking at it was a kind of a potential and then to lead into the latter half of the regular season. F that, because teams that have let themselves slip after 5 weeks and the teams that have done well, that have kind of set themselves up to finish strong for 5 weeks, is a clear differentiation. So the teams that maintain control are going to be ranked higher, and the teams that are still kind of shifting in that middling group, not so much. Take potential, take whatever ideas about their draft, whatever, throw out the window. It's all about the actual what they've been doing, and each match from now on, it's about how they've showed how well they can control a match. So that's going to be explained better when I'm actually talking about the matches. Leading off at our number 12
Alright.
ranking is Crimson.
Yep, we get Crimson at 12. What can I say about him? Poor first few turns on his part. Kind of was sad to see the awful use of Gothitelle. Granted, it was a misclick going for Trick, so I can't fault him completely. We've all had a misclick now and again. But the fact that his Gothitelle didn't outspeed Nidoking, I have a big problem with that. This was a Choice Scarf Gothitelle, base 65 speed, couldn't outspeed a max speed base 85 speed Nidoking. I have a problem with that. I think even though it was a misclick, Trick was the worst play. There was Sucker Punch, obviously, possible as well. It even outsped Jolteon after getting the Scarf. So basically, that misclick cost him the game. Yeah, it was a misclick. It's still not a big excuse. I will say, I was intrigued rather, by his Feraligatr set, the special bulky Feraligatr, but I don't think this was the right week to run it. I didn't see what it would offer him this week. It just seems like he's trying to think of some really weird ideas, but he's not putting them out there at the right time. That's kind of, I think, one of the things that has plagued Crimson over these first 5 weeks. I think he's got to just settle down and think even more clearly about what's going to be effective this week, what's going to be effective this week. I think even if he has to, what he should do is write a list of sets that every single mon in his team can use and think about, okay, you list 5 sets for Gator: SD, DD, special attacker, defensive, whatever. List a bunch. And you can pick, depending on the matchups, which one would be best. And you can change the moves around, and that'd be that. I just think if he fixes that up, he'd be in a lot better shape. One of the other things I didn't like, his Clefable probably shouldn't have bothered to use counter since he knew that Aggron had sub. It's maybe just a little bit of a nitpick, but that's my opinion right there. Final thoughts on Crimson this week. He kind of, because of that misclick, let Cooper start the game with a 6-3. Basically, he may as well have just brought 3 Pokemon to that battle. It's kind of sad, and like I said, it was a misclick, but I have to hold him responsible for it. So that is why Crimson moved down, and he's at number 12. What are your thoughts, Tom?
To add on to the whole him writing down what sets are possible for
Good
his
point.
team, I think an even better idea to extend from that is to write down the potential sets or even just review the move sets or the moves of the mons on your opponent's team. It's really good to know what your opponent has to work with in terms of what offensive or support or utility type moves a mon can learn, so you aren't surprised by certain moves that kind of come out of the blue that, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Well, obviously, because you didn't know what it could learn or that it learned a certain move. Yeah, behind that, Danza kind of said basically everything I was going to say. Didn't understand why a Nidoking outsped a Scarf got to tell. That means it had to be running 0 speed or like a negative speed nature or something along those lines. Maybe not negative speed nature, but the fact that it wasn't running any speed and he intended to have trick and trick something. I know he misclicked. I watched his video. And Psyshock probably would have killed the Nidoking. Him going for Trick, I could see how it would be totally frustrating and so game changing that you're just like, F it, I'm done. So that did suck though, because did kind of give Cooper a 6-3 lead by like turn 5 or something. So him going for a counter, yeah, wasn't the smartest idea. Grant, I see why he did it. I just don't think it was a good idea. And then the whole special bulky for alligator, I don't know, bulky and for alligator
Mm.
don't really like they don't mesh in my mind. I see why. Again, I could see what he did. I just don't agree with it. And I think this match was sloppy, and I could understand his frustration. But I just think if he gets anything out of this match, it's a kick in the ass for next week. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'd say it's just more motivation for him. Regarding for Alligator, like I said, I don't think the set was bad. I like some creativity. I think for Alligator has some very workable defense. So if you wanted to run a bulkier set, that's totally fine. A special attacking set with sheer force certainly isn't bad. It does get a couple of good moves, but like I said, I don't think this was the week to use it.
Right. I mean, seeing Kecleon was cool though.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Kecleon was nice. There's still some positives in there for Crimson. Like I said, it wasn't 100% his fault. It was the misclick, and you can understand his frustration. So maybe that contributed to a lot of these moves.
Oh yeah, I've been that spot before, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's all understandable.
not gonna be too hard on him. But we probably should go up to number 11. We both had Steve. You want to talk about Steve at number 11?
Yeah, let's do it. Steve. So I do actually watch Steve's breakdown videos of the team he's going to bring. And I don't really see an excuse as to why he didn't bring Mega Gardevoir this week. And that's pretty much a main point I'm going to talk about. Yes, Miguel had Escavalier, and he had things that could potentially take on Mega Gardevoir. However, the downside of him not bringing Mega Gardevoir this week was the fact that he, without it, let Miguel's Hydreigon just run through his team because without anything to check Hydreigon, it just allowed Miguel to just click Draco and kill something. Steve has no steel types. He has one fairy type, and without either, Miguel can just come in and kill something. And if you allow Miguel to get into that position, even for the most experienced player, it's not going to turn out well for you. So I think Steve's planning was interesting. I think it was a little unfortunate that he had planned the HP flying on Breloom, and the I guess what was it, the Koba Berry
Mm-hmm.
was good on Miguel's Chestnut. It wasn't intentional that it worked. It was just kind of like, oh hey, my planning worked out. Steve got rocks up, good for him. He got Pursuit trapped by Escavalier. Kind of saw that one coming because I mean, Escavalier only learns a certain amount of moves, and Pursuit was actually really effective this week versus Steve's team. And then, but the one point that I'm going to harp on. All right, Steve, his game planning and the way he likes to incorporate whatever wall he wants to bring is infuriating. And I say that specifically about the Arcanine set this week, and maybe even the way he's used Suicune or whatever other type of switches, like switching a Latios in on a wall that's still going to take a lot of damage. The Arcanine set. Okay, so we know he's going up against some Miguel, who has a Escavalier. Yes, you could bring in Arcanine into an Escavalier. However, Steve only had leftovers as recovery move, because I believe that set was Flare Blitz, E-Speed, Bulldoze, and Iron Head. So no recovery move with Morning Sun. Now I can understand why he didn't use Morning Sun, but the fact that he didn't have it, and then he just switched it in, let it take damage. And then when rocks were set up, he switched it in again. Like I feel like he was just throwing Arcanine out there to die, because once he had let its leftovers get knocked off, it was pretty much useless. And outside of that, his Arcanine set was basically entirely crippled against Miguel's Hippowdon. That set really did nothing. And the only thing he really hoped for is like a berm of Flare Blitz. But even then, he's not going to stay in, and that's like a pretty easy switch for Miguel. And even Hydreigon is a pretty easy switch for that Arcanine set. I just don't get it. You know, like
Yeah.
there was no reason for that set. It wasn't offensive enough, but also wasn't like defensive enough. It was in like this weird ground that it was just bad, and it was unnecessarily innovative to the point of it's only going to hurt you. So yeah,
Hmm.
you can go ahead now. That was like my rant for this
All
for
right.
him.
One thing I would like to say, since you just talked about Arcanine, I mean, I can appreciate Steve trying to innovate. I do think he should have probably not used Arcanine so recklessly, as you said. I also think a little bit of a moveset change might have helped him out a bit. I personally think Fire Blast would have been better than Flare Blitz, given that Hippowdon's much better on the physical side.
Right, and that makes sense. But then again, if he did that, he would have to be like a naive or a naughty nature. didn't really use well at all this week either.
Yeah, and
So,
if that's the thing, if he's not using it defensively, then why bother? Or why not run, I don't know, Flash Fire, because you can now all of a sudden you have a switch into Victini.
well, that's what he wanted it to be, but I mean, he predicted it to come in with the bulldoze, but Hydreigon was still Miguel's better switch.
Yeah.
So,
Clearly, there's a lot going on there. Did he have close combat?
no, it was Blitz, E-Speed, Bulldoze, and
Yeah,
Ironhead. I don't know. The Ironhead was for Florges, but I think Miguel's smart enough to run some kind of coverage move for an Arcanine anyway.
yeah. That's
If
how I
he brought it.
thought, because I feel like close combat probably would have been more beneficial for the Hydreigon switch.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I mean,
I really don't think Florges would have been that big of a threat that he needed to carry Ironhead for it. Maybe that's just me.
right.
All right, beyond that, Steve, yeah, he moved up. He overall, I think it was more of I liked some of what Steve did. I was actually a big fan of the HP Flying Breloom. I think that was good innovation. It was only stopped by the Koba Berry on Miguel's Chestnut, which was kind of planned, kind of not planned, whatever it may be. I thought that was nice. But it just seemed like Miguel was always a step ahead. It wasn't as much Steve messing up. There wasn't any concrete moment where I could say, Steve, you just flat out bleeped up, Okay, the Arcanine wasn't that good, but at the time, I guess I could kind of see it. Not a big fan of it, but it's there. But it wasn't a total misplay, in my opinion. Bad, but not a total misplay. There wasn't anything I could say that Steve totally misplayed this week. He just got overpowered by Miguel in every way. So Steve was taking 5 steps forward, Miguel took 10. Always ahead. And I don't think there's any different way to look at it. I do think next week Steve has his most attainable win against Crimson. I'm hoping that he brings his A game, because if he can play like he did this week, minus a couple of little things like with the Arcanine, I think he can get it.
I mean, since he watches the power rankings now, and he did address us saying that we thought like there are just bad plays and there are unnecessary plays, and then there's just like there's good planning with bad execution. It's like just take a step, like, go back to basics, I guess, is kind of a way. But outside of that, Miltank, I don't care if Hydreigon is a defensive Hydreigon, it's not a switch in to Hydreigon, especially not without realizing it was specs, because oh my god, that was he switching. Oh yeah, I can take this. No, it can't. No, it can't. And even
Yeah.
if it was Life Orb, that thing would probably still die from a Draco, Dragon Pulse, and then a Dark Pulse or whatever.
I think it would kind of been interesting to see Assault Vest Muck to deal with Hydreigon.
I was thinking the same thing.
And that's kind of one of my other that's a nitpick more or less, but I think that would have been an interesting set to see this week.
Yeah, if you want to talk about innovation.
All right, so I think we've talked enough about Steve. So next in line, Nips. So he battled Shady this week. I do like Yawn Quagsire. Okay, I thought that was kind of cool. His Jirachi, very cheap. Hey, I'm a fan of it. I've used it before too. It's not that original. The Iron Head, Body Slam, or Thunderwave. He had Thunderwave in this case. The Parahacks, Iron Head flinching. I'm a big fan of it because I've used it before. It's not that original, but it's effective.
It is effective.
But that's kind of where a lot of the good things start to dwindle out. I question Nips' switch of Mega Altaria onto the Ambipom fake out. I didn't see a reason for it. Was he just foddering it off? Why would you fodder off one of your best mons that early? It should be his best mon, but he's been using it kind of poorly, especially that game when he didn't get to do anything. I had some more complaints about why do you switch Roserade onto Ambipom? With the webs up especially, you know that you can't outspeed. You know that Ambipom probably has something to KO. Fire Punch, maybe even Return. And then Return after he switches into Jirachi. I didn't get that even more because there was a Fire Punch and it 2 KO'd for no reason. And let's go for round 3. Switch Roserade in again. After he saw the Fire Punch twice. I don't get it. Final thoughts on Nips. There were a couple good things in there. I think he planned at least, but it was very sloppy, especially Roserade, Jirachi switches. I think Ambipom did a great job for Shady, but Nips helped to make it look good. There's a lot of cleaning up on the playing end of the spectrum for Nips, that's for sure. What are your thoughts?
I agree with most of that. I think, okay, so initially when I was looking at his team comp, I could see, so he didn't bring a defogger, and I could see why he didn't bring Mandibuzz, especially with the 2 electric types that, Shady had realistically brought this week. However, I think that Mandibuzz was in a way mildly necessary because even having a single thought about, oh yeah, Galvantula can run or probably will run Sticky Web if he brings it. Just with that thought in mind, if you allow even a Scarfer to get that, 1.5 speed drop or the equivalent of losing a Scarf, Ambipom did essentially what Ambipom did. It cleaned up a lot of things because when you have your opponent's mons, even if they are potentially faster, are slower because of the sticky web, it essentially allowed Shady to just pick things off or get crucial damage off to ensure a kill later on. It was good control, and I think it was just kind of poor-ish planning on Nips's end. Like you said, why did he switch? He switched Altaria in on Ambipom versus Jirachi. I could see why, if he thought he was trying to scout for a move, like scouting for Fire Punch, even if the return was still kind of an okay move. It He's still a Quagsire. It's kind of hard to not like look around that one. And then outside of that, at the end, that really weird thing with the sticky web and switching in Roserade and Jirachi, like Jirachi died and switching Roserade back in. Like he had Halucha left, and he could have just killed the thing that was threatening his last three mons. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't getting his mindset, or I wasn't just understanding what he wanted to do.
And
But it never really panned out at all, basically.
yeah,
And then even that stockpile Quagsire set, why? Why? I don't think he would ever get the opportunity to do that unless he was just facing Melodic. So
yeah, and like I said, I did like Yawn, but Stockpile I wasn't convinced about. Obviously, we didn't really get to see it. Bottom line, he probably could have been up. Maybe he could have had a chance to win, rather, if he just went right into Halucha and made it 3v3 instead
oh,
of getting rid of Jirachi and Roserade. There was a chance maybe he could have won.
wait, at the tail end of my notes, he says, okay, so he took his time this battle, which he was like, I gotta calm down. That's good that he learned that. The thing now, okay, now I remember why he made those weird switches. He was afraid of the knockoff, and he was afraid of knockoff critting, so that's why he switched in Jirachi.
Okay.
It was like the ghosts of last week were coming back to haunt him. That'll kill you.
Oh, there you go. I can understand it, but I think at that point in the match, when you're down that much, you kind of have to take some risks.
Oh yeah, obviously.
So that I think is a little bit of a learning lesson. When you're down in a match, take some risks. Yeah, you kind of have to at a certain point because it's like if you don't take them, you're gonna lose anyways. So
Yeah,
you may as well try.
right.
So that's just my opinion. There's a little news flash for everyone, not just Nips. Any final thoughts on Nips?
Initially, I thought it was Halich was banded, and then obviously that wasn't the case. But I thought so, But that's because Shady had that weird melodic set. But no, I'm good.
All right, so number 9, we both had Tup. What are your thoughts on Tup, Tom?
All right, top. I think that. All right, so I Gen Tup's team this week, or a good part of it. I think him leading with Aromatisse was good because he realized that there was a pattern with Dan leading with Sableye. Now it's not a big issue that Dan led with Sableye, these past few weeks, but it was a good thing for him to catch early on and kind of make sure that he had a good lead. Granted, Nidoqueen was still a good switch in for Dan, but that's neither here nor there. The big elephant of that match that I guess was really the question mark in my mind was when he's talking in his team breakdown, he was saying how Salamence is his win condition, that nothing on his team at +1 or even neutral wants to take an outrage, and then he lets it die early on by like turn 3. It was a really bad play, and I did talk to him privately, and he said that he underestimated that Nidoqueen would be carrying Ice Punch. Again, that goes back to know your opponent, kind of understand some patterns on your opponent's team, even if it just means looking at just their move sets or understanding like any kind of tendencies of the coach. You got to scout your opponent, basically. And even if he did have Yachi, taking that damage would still hurt him in the long run. So I think it was reckless and it was a mistake on his, and he did realize that, but it still kind of hurt him.
Yeah. And I just want to say
Overall.
one thing. Obviously, we know Dan went for Ice Punch, but he could have also expected Ice Beam, and almost every Nidoqueen and Nidoking carries
Oh
Ice
yeah,
Beam, so
ice move of some sort.
of some sort. Sorry about it. Go on.
No, no, it's fine. That's a good point. They do carry, and you could tell from any sort of mixed or one-sided offensive Nido, whether it's Queen or King, they do carry that ice move, and it's effective, obviously, for a reason. Anyway, the Air Balloon Heatran. While I don't like Air Balloon. Just me. It was good to see it be used effectively because more times than not, you would see an air balloon get popped by some sort of not a very effective move, or you expect one thing and your opponent does another, so you lose the air balloon immediately. It was good to see him dodge that earthquake. So good for him. Later on in the match, toxing the Chansey with natural cure. No one runs Serene Grace Chansey. Like that's not a thing. I think Tup did a good job planning, but Dan did a better job. And I think so. The last two things, Tup should have stuck with Choice Banded Azumarill. That would have helped him at the end of the match. Potentially could have helped him sweep later in the match, or at least get that the crucial damage off. But finally, overall, it was that Mega Zam set is why I gen that Zam, and I asked him. I was like, hey, listen, are you gonna like? I don't mind the set, but Dazzling Gleam kind of seems like you're gonna, and whatever. The Gleam, I kind of predicted that the whole Sableye Zam combination, the matchup would be common, and I think that if he did get that Dazzling Gleam off, he potentially could have killed Sableye, and negated that whole checking thing at the end where Sableye could have killed Zam with the priority. The Shadow Ball I didn't really see was effective. The Psyshock knockoff, that was good. You get rid of the Eviolite against the Chansey, and you have Sub in case he wants the status. Yeah, I saw the potential. Knockoff Zam was cool. But not having Gleam, the kind of just, there was something to be desired there. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that one.
All right. So I echo a lot of what Tom said. I thought he had an excellent lead in Aromatisse to recognize that Dan usually leads with Mega Sableye. But then later in the match, as Tom just pointed out, he should have had Dazzling Gleam on his Mega Alakazam. He's able to get a knockoff off on Chansey. He's in a good spot. All of a sudden, he's also facing Mega Sableye behind a sub. And he can get, 60% off maybe? If not,
basically, yeah.
Basically for free. That would have helped him late game because later in the game, Mega Sableye was hanging around 30, 40 HP at red health.
Right.
So that would have been really helpful. I think that would have, because Mega Sableye had Shadow Sneak, and that was kind of important later in the game, I feel like just maybe it would have led to him possibly winning. Maybe not winning, but definitely making it a little bit closer. So I think there's a little bit of a planning issue in that regard. I know you talked to Tup. I just didn't think Shadow Ball would be that effective. And
I said the same thing.
I second what you said. So that's one of my big problems this week. Air Balloon Heatran was great. Flashes of good plays. There it is. I loved it when he switched in on that Earth Power. Or was it Earthquake? Whatever it was. It was great. But then the next turn, he Toxics a Natural Cure Chansey, and he lets the Seismic Toss break the balloon. I really wish he saved the balloon. I didn't think there was any need for him to break the balloon at that point, or definitely no need Toxic. If he was doing it for Stealth Rocks, maybe. I think that at that point, Stealth Rock would have been probably a good play, because he's not going to switch out with Chansey on a Heatran.
He was Lava Pluming, that's right.
Yeah, so I just think that if he tried to use Stealth Rock, did he even have it? I'm not 100% sure, I can't confirm, but if he didn't, he should have. If he did have it, he should have used it there. That would have been really effective against Dan's team, because he was not going to go into Mega Sableye.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think that would have been the perfect time to set them up. I will say, though, I said some bad things about his Alakazam, but Knockoff was really cool. Big fan of it.
It was.
So
I even said that.
I know. Overall, my final thoughts, just I did probably repeat a lot of what Tom said, and that's, that we had the same thoughts. We actually did. We have different notes here, but they're kind of the same. All right. I don't think Tup prepared super well. I think especially I had some problems with his Alakazam, of course. That's, I think, the biggest one. Okay, reasonably well, I guess. I'm not going to say he prepared badly. And some of his plays were definitely questionable. He should have at least used Stealth Rock somewhere or put it on something, perhaps Etran. Dazzling Gleam was a must on Alakazam. I think the best set he could have run, substitute, knockoff, Psyshock, Dazzling Gleam. And
Yep.
yes, I said Psyshock because in previous weeks,
Special defensive wall.
yeah, because Chansey's a especially defensive behemoth. So that would have been perfect to face Dan. So I think just it's
Also,
all minor stuff from Top really. He's got the potential definitely. I think at this point when he's going into next season, I think he's gonna just learn from all of this. I'm hoping he's gonna take our advice. I think he at least listen. He definitely listens to it every week, and
right.
he should keep his chin up because I think he's been growing a lot. He's doing a good job overall. There's always next season.
Also, last two closing notes. I'm still gonna mess with that name and deal with it because whatever. And two, before any of you conspiracy theorists in the comments think that I'm, rigging, matchups here. He asked me, "Hey, is there anything you'd like, you want to ask me about?" And I did, and I just questioned him, and I let him use his reasoning. I was like, "All right, hopefully it works out for you." I'm not going to tell him to fix it or anything if he doesn't want to, if he's set on that move set. Just, when he said, "Here, if you can make this for me, just, um, do you like it? What does it seem viable?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I mean, it's your team, so you planned. I didn't, so."
So John, number 8. Good first couple turns, I will admit. Prevent Scolipede from setting up. That's perfect. But then Power Bounce kicks in from that Gyarados. That was an amazing play by Geo. We'll talk about that in a bit. I can't even really fault John for that. Yeah, he knew Bounce existed, but it's a 2-turn move. I can't even fault John. That was just perfect play by Geo. He definitely the outcome of it was detrimental, but I would have never seen it coming. So that just is a testament to how well Geo did this week. But I have a lot of problems with how John played. I might not totally fault him for that, but I will fault him for other things. Why did you not carry HP Grass on Raikou? I
Yep.
really don't think Evire was that big of a threat, especially because you had the Mega Venusaur. Maybe he would have okay, even if he ran Psychic. Okay, you have something else for a switch. You could have found something else to deal with Electivire. I feel like Mega Swampert was a much bigger threat to your team, and because you have the Volt Switch is always stopped by ground types. Yes, Electivire has a Motor Drive, but it's going to outspeed you with the Motor Drive anyways. So HP Ground all of a sudden is kind of not going to help you out very much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so HP Grass I think would have been much better. I also don't know what Aura Sphere was for. That I'm also questioning. He had Aura Sphere as well. Can you think of anything
I
that was
mean,
for? Maybe one thing. I'm not sure.
yeah, I don't. I mean, it's damage, and if anything, if he had HP Grass and Aura Sphere, it could have handled Evire and Mega Swampert versus exclusively one or the other. I guess if that really makes sense.
I
Maybe
guess.
maybe Aura Sphere was his alternative to not having HP Grass, but still, I think that's just bad.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think that was kind of the biggest problem with John right there because he lost that Mega Venusaur. I like I said, I can't even totally fault him because I would have never seen it coming, no matter how much I knew Gyarados' moveset. Like we talked about Nips knowing people's movesets or whoever earlier on, or maybe it was Crimson, but we I can't even totally say that about John here. That was just like I said, a testament to how good Geo did with that set. But there were some other issues like that HP ground. Well, it kind of amounted to a tragic loss for John. John didn't plan very much. He openly said it. I know he was busy with life. That's a good excuse, but as a person to accept that. But this just shows what happens when you don't and you can't plan for the GBA. Real life always comes first, so I'm definitely not knocking John the person or John the battler. But because of some of his questionable plays this week, and because of his not planning this week, whether it was due to real life or not, I had to dock him a bit. And he's competing with Cooper, Dan, and Shady, all of which are basically 2 or more games ahead. It's going to be really tough for John to rebound. So that's kind of my spiel on John. What are your thoughts, Tom?
I agree with mostly everything. He prevented Scolipede from getting carried away early on. That was good. Bounce Gyarados. I guess it's just how I would have played that match with John's team. After getting that big damage off with the bounce against Mega Venusaur, I probably would have went into Kyurem because, well, two reasons. One, the Kyurem perhaps could have lived any move. Now, you could have feared a Stone Edge. That's a valid, worry. But I think if he ran bounce and if he also had like Stone Edge over any other kind of coverage move that seemed a little more viable, I could see how Mega Venusaur could have still stayed alive. Probably could have recovered on Gudra or on like a predicted switch, stuff like that. Because I think John's good enough to try and make that move, but I don't know. This week kind of said otherwise. I think that he had a good matchup, decent enough, like you said. The HP ground over HP grass, Raikou, and then having Aura Sphere. It's like poor planning creates the poor result that he had gotten. Like, okay, great, he could have did better, but you can say that about a lot of his matches. He could have did better, and at this point, and this is where I'm harping on that whole prep versus potential thing. You play bad and you're 2-3 in a division that has two teams with one or no losses, and then Cooper, who has been playing so well. I mean, even his just Cooper's differential is higher than Shady's and Dan's. You know, you have to win out. Like at this point, there's no other option, and without that, like you can't. It's a long shot to get into the playoffs. And sure, he can see it as a challenge, and he can use it as a motivation. But this this week, so especially, has shown me that you could have a good team, and you could have a good draft. But if you don't plan, what's really the point? You know?
Yeah, definitely. All right. I mean, that's pretty much all I had on John. It's going to be tough to see him rebound. Like I said, there are a lot of people ahead of him. Shady 4-1 in wild card right now, and
Yep.
Cooper 3-2 in his own division, while he is 2-3. So he has some catching up to do. And just for record, Dan 5-0 in the other division. So it's gonna be tough.
That goes without saying, though.
Yeah. All right. So we ready to move up?
Yep.
All right. We deviate a little bit here. I had Hank at 7. Tom had Geo. Do you want to talk about Geo or Hank first?
Yeah, I mean, Geo we can just patch over pretty quickly. Geo played incredibly well. Geo is it's weird because I kind of see Geo kind of like how I was. It's your first season in the GBA. Obviously, you're familiar with the whole the way it works, but you're not like the most lucrative team. You're not the most sought after, the most flashy team, but you make moves when you need to, and you can kind of be that dark horse that can really make a push in these last 5 weeks. I think he played, like I said, he played incredibly well. Bounce Gyarados, great. He was very smart, and everything he did, every play, every switch, every option that he had in turn after turn was calculated. It was lowest risk in the overall match, and it was just effective. And bottom line, that's really all you need. Planning, playing, and then just being calm and collected and cool and just being effective. Bottom line, Geo played well. He kept Scissor around just to clean up, and that's basically what it did. And once John got frazzled, Geo took over and just made the power play, and he crushed what he had considered a very difficult team to play in John's team. Obviously, yeah, he never switched for Cure and Black depending on the set, but that really didn't matter. He just played well and he reaped that reward basically.
Yeah, I had Geo in number 6, basically because that's a playoff spot. 1 through 6 is obviously where I think people are going to be in the playoffs. Just my ranking as of right now. I think Geo has more momentum than Hank at the moment. Hank is just on the fringe. My problem with Hank, he's lost 3 in a row. That is awful momentum going into next week, and he's going up against the number 1 team in the league. I'm not sure if he can do it. I hope he can, because if he can, he might be back in that 6th spot. But Geo, like I said, has all the momentum in the world right now. He took down the Sawsbucks, which isn't as much of a feat, but he took down John, which he is the toughest team to prepare for in the league, in my opinion, regardless of his record. So, yeah, he took down the toughest team on paper. So, huge win right there. That's why I put him at 6. I think he's more momentum. And as of right now, I'd be more comfortable saying that Gio would make that 6th slot. Regards to the match, Power Bounce Gyarados was amazing. Excellent play. These are the moments in the GBA. Gio knew how to take out John's win condition. I liked it. I also thought the Scarf Moltres with Will-O-Wisp was really interesting for Kieran Black. I like it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. I know he didn't really have any switches, but that was an interesting way to deal with it. It got a burn off on Raikou, which was fine, but hey, that's still thinking outside the box. I like it. Mega Swampert put in a bunch of work. Bulky Swampert, I like it even without the rain. It's been doing all right. Scissor easily cleaned up. That's basically how you summarize that match. Dominance by Gio the whole week is my final thought. 95% of his predictions were spot on, balanced, middle ground, safe, and a few calculated risky plays. And Bounce Gyarados. Nothing but praise this week. He's put himself back into playoff contention. He's fighting with Hank, but as I said, I think Gio has more momentum. So keep it up, man.
Now, before I lead into Hank, the only reason I have Hank above Gio is I think Hank has one last shot. Right now, Hank's differential is -3. Gio's differential is -7. I think Hank has one more week to show that he's either a reeling, team who has kind of crumpled underneath this pressure, or he's a team who can bounce back and kind of stay above Gio, who has now challenged him. Obviously you have Nips, who can also challenge him for his spot, but it's difficult to kind of assess both those teams. That's why I have Hank above Gio. But otherwise, yes, he is reeling. He is having a hard time, and he has lost 3 matches in a row. But in terms of his match, he had made a speculation that every, number 1 team that we have in the power rankings lost the week after. The only commentator's curse that we provide is league-wide hacks for not having Cooper at 3, because that's the power of the commentator. Besides that, and then I think Hank not considering Megametric as a lead was kind of ill-advised, I guess. He has led with Infernape for many weeks now. Granted, it's like his only real dependent rocker, that's effective. It was a good lead. Don't get me wrong, but it's just when he let it die, it was a loss to handling Weavile, which obviously is a threat this year. Like, you can't sleep on Weavile, otherwise he'll just kill things.
I think it's 10-0 at the moment.
8-0.
8-0? Really? All right.
Yep.
My bad. Go ahead. Continue.
But fine, just closing things. I think Hank couldn't really have done much more than what he already did. Mavone was on point, and the only thing I will credit Hank for is that his Alamomola summoned its inner scope lens to give Hank a fighting chance versus that sub bulk up Gallade. Granted, it didn't matter, but Alamomola gave its dying chance to hopefully let Hank have a chance at not getting swept, which ultimately ended up happening, but it was still kind of funny to watch. Sucks for Hank, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, so Hank, he's fighting with Gio, and it seems like he's done a complete 180 since the beginning of the season. I think at one point he was even at number 1 in the power rankings. Maybe not. He's definitely 2. I think he was 1 week.
Yeah, fun fact from our perspective, from the analysts, John and Hank were our number 1 and 2 teams for, power early on this season, which says a lot looking at it now.
Yeah, it just means that our opinions about how teams look on paper doesn't necessarily reflect how they work in practice.
And their opinions.
Yeah, they're only opinions. You don't need to get upset about them. There's nothing to worry about.
But they do.
But they do. There are always those few people who write paragraph after paragraph, page after page, write the great American novel criticizing us. These are just for fun videos. So, all right, I'm gonna see a paragraph long response to what I just said. But oh well, I don't.
Off the soapbox.
And I guarantee there'll be 40 comments about that from one person. Anyways, let's move on. So Hank, I just said, did a 180 with those 3 losses in a row. He's at my 7. It was very difficult to choose between them, which would, I think, at the moment be in playoff contention most. So Hank's definitely not out of it. It was very close by a hair. My biggest problem was, obviously, he didn't really understand the power of Gallade until he got into a really bad position. And one of my other problems, and it's not a problem with him necessarily, it's the lack of offensive presence from Alma Mamola in general. It's pretty good in the format. But its biggest flaw is if you opt to run Scald, you're basically substitute bait. So I think he probably should have done something. If he runs Scald on Alma Mamola, run Roar on something that's defensive. Or something like that. So that way you can get anything that tries to set up in your face out of there as soon as possible. If Alma Mamola got Whirlwind or Roar somehow, I don't know how it would. It's a fish. But
I mean, it has fans, so like, get away.
I guess. If it could do that magically, that would be the greatest thing it could ever have. But that's my big takeaway for Hank. Learn to do that. And I think he will, because this was a big wake-up call. A 4-0 loss is nothing to laugh at or scoff at. I think he's going to learn from it. My hope is that he won't go drop 4 in a row, because that's only going to give Gio that much more hope at the playoffs, especially if he wins this week. 2 big games next week. Mulvone versus Hank, and Miguel versus Gio. We'll see which of the two, if any, are victorious. Of Hank and Gio, I mean. So those are basically my comments for Hank overall. You basically said a lot of the other stuff. It's just a few fundamental little things. Hank has a great team. He's a great player, no doubt about it. He's just got to put a little bit more of this stuff together when it counts, and he can't get down about himself. He can't give in to pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Alrighty, we ready to jump to number 5.3. There's a 3 there, guys. There's a 3.
Yeah, 5.3.
Alright, I'll just scroll down to where Cooper is here. Alright, so Cooper led with his best choice for a lead, Nidoking. It has excellent coverage, and it hit pretty much everything on Crimson's team. Cooper said he was going to throw up on an action figure. I like my eyes. Please, Cooper, don't record yourself doing this. Please. Okay, joke of the day over. Head smash action. I like it. He still hasn't missed a head smash. I don't know what's going on there. Is he training it in accuracy EVs?
Yeah, man.
Is he giving it more than, protein, iron, carbos? He must be doing some illegal activity. I have no idea.
He called me out, man. He said I don't account for accuracy EVs, and he's right. I don't.
I don't know, man. There's something sketchy going on there. Is he bargaining with the devil or something? I don't know. There's something there. Just overall, Cooper really benefited from Crimson's misclick. He probably didn't even need to really give half an effort. If he gave half of an effort, basically, I think he still would have won. That was just because of Crimson's misclick, not because of incompetence or anything. Just that really set Crimson back. He benefited. And yeah, Cooper made the match look easy. He's a top competitor, no doubt. Top 6 for sure. Apologies. Only reason why I moved Cooper to 5.3, I stress the 3, is because Dan moved up to 4. I'll talk more about Dan later, but Dan hasn't fallen to pressure or trap games. Cooper has. Oh, and Cooper likes odd numbers, that too. So he's a big contender, no doubt. Just as everyone is from 1 to 6. So those were my thoughts on Cooper. Actually, I want to add one more thing. Part of the reason why I moved him down was because he really just kind of benefited from such a big mistake, whereas Dan really, really earned his victory this week. Even though it was against Tup, he still earned the victory. I'll go over that later, though. You can go next.
I have, I think, 3 very quick things besides the accuracy EVs joke. I think that Cooper shook off that match, that rattled match last week. Very interesting sets, some very Cooper sets, some very not Cooper sets. Mixed Nidoking with both physical and special moves. Obviously, it's effective, and obviously, it worked. Scarf support Togekiss. I like that kind of option because basically it allows him to like utilize something, a fast option, if things got out of hand like they did last week. And then even the stall Zapdos, it's a Zapdos, so what else does it do? But it was interesting enough, at least as compared to the Zapdos we saw last week. But I liked how in the beginning when it was King versus whatever Dan or Crimson led with, he opted to stay in and create offensive pressure rather than doing roundabout stall to linger the match on. That to me was kind of important because it's important sometimes to make that type of play in order to guarantee yourself that hey, you're gonna create more opportunities for yourself rather than being in a sticky situation later on. For example, like his first match with Crimson, when he had gotten that when Megazord X had gotten paired from the Thunderbolt. So outside of that, I think that Cooper just played very well. The unintentional counter, the way he scouted for counter, that was really funny. It was like unintentional things happened this week, but it was funny because he even said it himself. He's like, I didn't mean to do that, but I did that, and it worked. Yay, I think. And having heavy slam Clefable, oh, I know that feel. I was on the latter end of getting heavy slammed against with me using Clefable, but Cooper played like Cooper does. It was effective. It was planning. It was good. That's it.
Yep. All right, so I got no further comments on Cooper, so let's jump to number 4, and we've got a deviation. Oh no. All right.
But it's a deviation that people will agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at the positioning, people. Look at the positioning.
Alrighty. I got Dan at 4. He's got Shady at 4. I'll talk about Dan first, and then you can talk about why you had Dan at 3. Let me just scroll down here.
Yeah.
All right. So, just from the get-go, I liked Dan's lead analysis. He did lead with Mega Sableye, which I know he does that a lot, but I thought this week it was actually a pretty good lead. He knew that if Tough led with Aromatisse, he had a safe switch to Nidoqueen anyways, so I thought that was very good reasoning on his part. Right off the bat, when Nidoqueen was against Salamence, I thought the Ice Punch was an excellent prediction. Knowing that he would live in attack just shows how in control he was during the game. He kept offensive momentum with his excellent defensive wall core. I like that. The great use of Nidoqueen as well for versatility and offensive pressure thus far through, I think, all 5 weeks. So he's using Nidoqueen great, really well. Good job saving Mega Sableye to keep it at low health. Once again, that goes back to Top not using Dazzling Gleam, most likely, but still, he kept it around, so that way he would have it for the Shadow Sneak prospect. I liked his good switches to keep HP on Nidoqueen. He knew how important Nidoqueen would be for later in the match, as we could see against the Azumarill, so I liked how he got to save some of that HP. The big Survive, obviously, won him the game. I liked it. Bulky Nidoqueen was great. Alright, my final thoughts on Dan. Dan always had the upper hand, never lost his cool, and has proven that he knows how to win in spite of building pressure and in spite of playing in so many quote-unquote trap games. What I mean by trap games is playing against people on the lower end of the spectrum, people with lower records. I consider them like trap games because you think you might be able to win, but you could easily lose because it's Pokemon. So anything can happen. So there's that. He's been winning them, so that's good. First dominance this week and previous weeks in these trap games, and his inability to succumb to pressure, I move him up to 4. I want to see how well he does over the next 3 weeks as well. If he can win at least 2 of these 3 big games that he has, he'll definitely stay in the top 4, not even a question in my mind. What are your thoughts?
I'm talking about Dan first, just because I want to finish up the points that you had brought up.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned control. Now, say it like you will. I have no shame in saying that I was wrong. Keeping Dan lower when he should have been higher. Yeah, my bad. I even said a few weeks ago that I didn't think Nidoqueen was a good offensive option when he had things like Terrakion. Also, my bad. Dan this week gets nothing from praise from me. his Mew set. I love that Mew set. It was kind of weird to me because I know Mew can learn any move, but I thought it was exclusively like TM moves. Um, but again, Sucker Punch, Gunk Shot, awesome. I think that, like you said, Dan never lost control. Yes, there was a part where he was potentially reeling, but he, maybe he even said in his commentary, take a step back, calm down, and reassess. Him switching Mew into Mamoswine wasn't a good play. It was a good play on Tup's end, but it was a good play on his end. But he did know what needed to handle what. He had a good plan. He had predicted Tup's team perfectly, and even just in my book, that's really impressive. And week in and week out, there's never really a time where he has to put himself in a detrimental situation, where he has to figure out how to squirm out of a stick situation. He's just playing well. He's playing well. Outside that wall core, he's just doing whatever he needs to do to really set himself up, and 5-0 says it all. And outside of that, that's why he moves up all the way to my number 3 spot, and why he's ahead of Shady, and why I think he will probably stay there. So,
alrighty. Guess we should probably
you can talk about Shady. All right, I'll talk about Shady since I'll just do a twofer.
All right, go ahead.
Shady for me, it was funny. He kind of brought like a UU team, and for me, I have this like soft spot for UU, not like 6th gen UU, but like 5th gen UU. With like Galvantula and Melodic and Azelf and all that. I like that team, really did. I think one quick gripe: Quagsire doesn't get rocks. Nothing against Shady. I thought I got rocks too, but then I realized after using Quagsire, it's bad. I think Shady he said in his commentary he likes making middle ground plays. I like Shady for saying that he likes making middle ground plays.
Does that mean he watches us?
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Whoa,
I mean, I know he actually does. I know he.
I know, but it's good. That's really good to recognize. It was funny seeing him use Regirock, even though he knew it wasn't. Garchomp was a better option. Maybe he'll do it next time or whatever, but. Regirock did what it needed to, got rocks up, died to a paraflinch, even though it got critted through the paraflinch. It was effective, and he did what it needed to do. Seeing Ambipom work, I have this like soft spot for Ambipom because in Season 3 and Season 2, I really did consider drafting Ambipom, but then I realized I had Scissor, so I was like, eh. But I like Ambipom, I really do. I think it's fantastic seeing him use Ambipom so damn well. He's just playing really, really well, and like for Dan, you can't really discredit him. Yeah, he still gets a little freaked out about when he's put in a tough spot. Maybe that'll hurt him, maybe it won't, but that's not the point. He has one loss. He's doing what he needs to do. He's playing the way he needs to plan, and that Ambipom set was on point. It was perfect coverage and right amount of damage that I need to really secure him that match. And it was good that he bluffed that choice item with Rotom Heat. He's ahead of Cooper because I think that until Cooper plays him, it's kind of going to be like a power match, or just really kind of show something. But besides that, it was hard for me to really differentiate those two, but they're kind of the same. I think they're both going to get in the playoffs, bottom line. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right.
Dan, Cooper, Shady, great, all three.
Yeah, I had Shady at 3. I put him just a nudge ahead of Dan. They're really, really close. I know Dan is technically ahead in his division, but I really think that Shady's had a bit of a rougher schedule. Although they are going to play each other in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. They're going to be playing each other soon, so that will definitely change depending on the outcome of that match. I can definitively say that Shady's ahead because of this, or Dan's ahead because of that. Also, I know they did play once, so stop writing that comment saying that they played once already. I just don't know to what extent I can consider that match a good testament to Dan winning due to the freezes and stuff like that. But I will say that was a good match on both ends, so I'd call that about equal. I just want to see a little bit more from the both of them when they play each other. And then I think I can make a good judgment on whether I'd put Shady or Dan ahead. Because keep in mind,
what's funny?
Keep in mind, I'm pretty darn sure Shady's going to get the wild card, so they're both probably going to be in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter where you are in the ranking, as long as you're in the playoffs, you're there. As long as you're 1 through 6, you're there, and that's all that
You know
counts.
what's you know what's funny?
What?
Think of their commentary during their match against one another, and then think of how they're playing now. Wow, there's a huge 180 just from what they said and what they did that match versus what they're doing and what they say now in their commentary. It's pretty
Indeed,
incredible.
they've both improved. They're improving every game, which I'm a
Oh
big fan
yeah,
of, especially since season 3 for A Drive, and even more since season 1 for Shady. Shady was
yeah.
the kind of guy in season 1 to just, he made 2 different Tyranitar sets. He'll bring one every other week. No, this year I'm a big fan of everything he's doing. He's making exclusive stuff every week. I'll get into the match this week specifically, and I'll bring up some of my points as I go along as well. All right, right off the bat, Scarf Bluff definitely came in handy later when he absolutely destroyed Quagsire with HP Grass. Great play, great battle sense at the start. He knew that Jirachi was specially defensive right off the bat. That takes some skill to just know it without even a damage calc. And I think there was a good patience on Shady's part. Uh, this patience allowed him to stay in on a Ironhead flinching, para-haxing Jirachi, and he got Stealth Rocks up as a result. Excellent right there. It was all luck, but you know what? That patience paid off. So I thought that was good. Now, I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier. He brought Adam and Ambipom. I'm really, really happy to hear that Shady takes speed tiers into account. Shady seems to impress me more and more every time. Because, like I said earlier, in Season 1, he kind of just brought the same things over and over again, standard EVs and whatnot. Nope, not this year. He's doing an excellent job of actually thinking of speed tiers, thinking of investment for bulk, maybe to live an attack or two. He's doing it all, and I'm liking it. The one critique this week, and this is what I would tell him, take high jump kick as a lesson. Not the end of the world this week. Obviously, he got the win. It was all solid for the most part. Next time you go against something with high jump kick, like a Lopunny, for example, or you're playing Nips again, I'm pretty darn sure, carry Protect. You have plenty more chances to do this, though, so it's a very, very small thing. Good job at the end, making a safe play, anticipating the sub on Halucha. I know it got rid of Ambipom. Ambipom had to faint, but I thought that was the safest play. There really was no middle ground play to make there, so I thought that was good. No problems there. Overall, solid performance in that regard. Excellent control, capitalized on Nips's mistakes, and made a lot of good middle ground plays, as always. Keep it up, Shady.
So I guess getting into the last two, we have, and I think this one's going to be relatively quick, at least from my end.
Yeah, it's pretty
Uh,
easy.
we have stay the same, Miguel and Mavon. Miguel, I think, like you said earlier, 10 steps ahead. Whatever you do, Miguel can do better. His planning and his playing all into account. Um, I think that Miguel's his team was just on point. We got to see some good prep and some good play out of his Cavalier. Last time I saw that was a long time ago, like a long, long time ago. Specs Draco. Maybe, I mean, even if he didn't think that he was gonna not bring Mega Gardevoir, meaning he thought he was gonna bring Mega Gardevoir, even just having those really hard hits, something is more than likely gonna die. Um, him having pursuit on Escavalier, like I said, with the whole Escavalier set, it was just effective. He as long as he knew that the Latios wasn't carrying HP Fire, he knew he got a free kill. Bottom line, it's just incredible to see how. Well, yeah, last week kind of bummed him out. I listened to his big speech beforehand, and I thought it was funny how he like early on in this season he said, oh, he doesn't want to be in first or he has to prove that he's in first. But then when he got it, he was like, yay! And then he loses to Mofone. He's like, ah, oh, I had it for a second, and he wants it. And if that's a good motivator for him to make that number one spot, more power to him. I think he's just playing well, and I think he's doing what he needs to do, and he's planning. And even the abstract things like HP Flying Breloom, he saw that coming, and you can't say he's not a threat. And people that play him should be afraid to
Yeah,
play
I
him.
want to ask him, teach me your ways, senpai. How do you predict an HP flying from a Breloom? I don't get it, but go on. Sorry.
Well, technician. Well, that's a. I mean, yeah, if you think technician, you think HP or hidden power, you could see that. But regardless, just great, just fantastic.
Mm. Yeah, I've got nothing but praise for Miguel. He just anything you can do, I can do better. That's what he said to Steve this week. That I could play that song, but it's going to be copyrighted, so I'm
Please
not going to do
don't. That
that.
song is so. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like from the 40s. But anyways, I could do that. It would be copyrighted, but you know what? That song is true. So he won up Steve in every way this week. I think even though he's playing a lower team, he definitely deserves to stay at number 2 because he showed dominance throughout. Pursuit Escavalier was excellent. He also knew even if Latios had HP Fire, he could live one due to the Assault Vest. And he also
Oh,
scouted
that's
for it
right.
the first time, which I thought was very nice because he knocked off, I believe it was the Arcanine on a switch.
Yeah, it
So
was.
he definitely was thinking about it. So it's not like he completely ignored HP Fire. When he knew he didn't have it, there you go, Pursuit. So I thought that was excellent as well. I thought the fact that he even brought his Cavalier, and I questioned it a little bit at the beginning of the year. I didn't say it was gonna be awful or he wasn't gonna use it, but I was like, I'm not sure about Escavalier, but this was a good week for him, for it and for Miguel. Escavalier broke out and did some pretty good work this week. Very impressed overall. And Specs Hydreigon basically cleaned up from there. So there's not a whole lot to say because he was in 2 last week. I can't change him because Mulvone still won, and I think Mulvone won also in a dominating fashion. So there's really nothing to change. Just keep it up, Miguel.
And then just quickly speaking about Mulvone, it was funny to see him bring Vivian this week, and I especially liked his planning just overall. I like the way that he preps for his battles. I know some teams they'll preach saying that they'll play test out their teams and give the other roster to someone else who will make a team on Showdown and they'll play and they'll practice and all that. Like some teams can say they do that, and other teams actually do that, and then you see the fruition of that testing. And I think it's really smart for him to do that, and you can see why it is so smart. He had suggested that he was going to bring something over sub bulk up Gallade, and the fact that he saw the viability and how volatile a sub bulk up Gallade was, it pretty much just kind of showed that he does put that work in. Bottom line, he prepped well. He brought the right Mons. Maybe not Vivian, but we haven't seen Vivian do anything yet. Would I like to? Yeah, sure, but we haven't seen anything yet. It was solid planning. Pursuit Weavile was pretty cool. Uh, yeah, I mean that's basically it. These top few teams. What are you really going to say besides good job? You planned well, and you got a W. Like that's pretty much all we can say. So
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Mulvone has been dominant so far. 5-0. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think I have too much else to add. It's just I will say that my bold prediction has been staying true as of thus far because Vivillon still hasn't got a KO. So there's that. Other than that, bulk up, Gallade, just dominant. I think that Mulvone, when he was planning, he saw that as his win condition. I want to set up on Alma Momola. And you know what? Son of a gun, he did. Because he knew, as I said earlier, Alma Momola doesn't carry a whirlwind or a roar or something like nothing like that. And if he's running Scald, he'll never be able to break the sub.
I mean,
So I,
if Game Freak can give a hippo Whirlwind, why can't they give a fish that has giant fans? Fan fins Whirlwind. I mean, come on.
yeah, there you go. Come on, Game
Come on,
Freak,
Game
make it
Freak.
happen.
Get your shit together.
So basically, I think just because he realized that weakness in Hank's team in his big physical wall, that was the reason why he succeeded. And I think that just is a testament to how well Mulvone is doing and to how well he's really adjusting into the format. So kudos to him. He's number 1. He's playing Hank again next week. Let's see if he can do a repeat.
Yep. So that's pretty much it. We apologize if it's a long one, but then again, that's what 1.5 and 2x is for. We didn't speak that fast, I hope. But bottom line, this was a good week to watch. I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed commentating, and writing doing all my notes this week. And I hope this is the theme for the rest of the season. These last few weeks are going to be all about control and maintenance and making sure that you really do lock up those last few spots. And that's all you can really do. You've made your bed. Now it's either you lay in it and you become the team that you have built up for, or you somehow spoil what you've created, and you think, oh well, I could have done this or I should have done this, and then you obviously don't make it to the playoffs. But that's it. You have anything else to add, Danza?
Not too much else. The only thing I would say, if you're a team on the lower end of the spectrum and you're pretty close to getting out of the playoffs, or you're already out of the playoffs, don't be afraid to do some creative experimentation. Don't do anything stupid like Ember Infernape, but bring something that's a little bit more risky, just to try some stuff out. If you're on the lower end of the totem pole in a couple of weeks, I don't see why not. Just to, I don't know, try some new stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously we haven't gotten there yet. I don't think there's any stats yet about if any team is out of the playoffs yet. And if there are, then we are uninformed, and we kind of don't want to look at that just yet. We are only halfway
Now,
through.
no teams are statistically
Right,
eliminated
exactly.
yet.
So
Not even the Sawsbucks. They're still in it technically.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. So with that all being said, we hope you guys enjoyed, and if you made it this far, thank you. I think, and as always,
Yeah, a whole hour
oh
and
God,
10
we
minutes.
apologize. Um, but leave your comments as always. I do a lot of talking in the comments, mostly because I'm bored as all hell at work. And leave your comments, your concerns, anything you want to talk about, and we'll gladly get back to you.
Yeah, write your whole 12-page essay about why we're the worst people in the world. Go ahead, do it.
Please don't. I don't want to read that. I'm not in college anymore or high school.
I don't either. That's
But as always,
don't be that guy to tag us in 400 tweets telling us we're stupid, please. Don't be that guy.
he's gonna watch this video regardless. Anyway, goodbye, people. Have a good day. Have a good night. Whenever you're watching this, and hope you enjoyed. I'm Tom.
I'm Danza.
That's it. Bye.
Peace.